views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and journalists and editors and videographers and filmmakers. I say that with emphasis on purpose, photographers, anybody really putting anything out in the borough of the Bronx. And this evening we're thrilled. We have an actor and he's put something out about our neighborhoods and about who we are in this day and age. It is my pleasure to welcome Stephen Greenstein. Nice to have you with us, Stephen.
Thank you, Gary.
We found out that we're Bronx brothers. We're Bronx neighbors. We don't live too. I was looking out the window here to see if I could see you, but not quite.
But we get our T-shirts made not too far from you. Our COVID Ditty T-shirts right there on 238th as you go up the hill.
There you go. Oh, I know. I actually, of course, I know the place. Anyway, aside from being neighbors, Steve, you're an actor. Why don't you just tell people about some of the stuff that you've done so they can get a little bit of the background?
Well, I've been a professional actor going back to 1983. I started my career in the Hill Street Blues era, and I call myself the king of co-stars. I have over 33 network television and film credits where I've worked alongside people like Burt Lancaster to Tim Robbins and to more recently Patti LuPone in the show called Pose at FX, which is actually located, their production house is in the Bronx. People don't realize how filmatic and cinematic the Bronx has become, but Silver Cup North is in the Bronx. So my last credit before the pandemic hit was the hit show Pose. I had a nice role opposite Patti LuPone. So I've been doing this most of my adult life, yeah.
In just a moment, we're going to talk about something called COVID Ditty. But I want to ask you about something that I've asked a lot of actors about, and that is growing up in the Bronx. It becomes a really good incubator for many people who act, who say, you know what, this was the best thing that I could have done to fuel my acting career. I'm guessing that you feel the same way.
That's a great question because there's so many characters that I can play in the theater that I get my juice from the characters that I saw on the streets growing up in the Bronx. For instance, West Side Story. Let's look at West Side Story. Shrank, Krupke, Doc, who has the sweet shop. Now, the sweet shop is the candy store in the block that we all knew, right? Officer Krupke was the beat cop. So I was blessed enough to play Officer Krupke in the London production in 2008, which was quite something. Here I am, a kid from the Bronx, staying with the acting for so long. And then I remember auditioning and just getting into, well, who's going to play Officer Krupke in London? It's got to be a guy like me. He can't be a British actor. What the heck they know? They do great accents and stuff, but you got the real deal here. So yeah, I think it's a great resource once you own yourself as a character actor, which I am. And I found that I could play, look at Guys and Dolls, the roles in Guys and Dolls. I mean, the opening scene of Guys and Dolls, you could put that at 231st Street and Broadway, everyone running and crisscrossing. It's a great question. I think once you own yourself and your type, they call it, know your type as an actor, you can really dig in with your imagination, parts of who you are, and the two can meet. And you can really draw on all these wonderful voices you heard growing up in the Bronx.
And you know, I'm in total sync with you. I mean, I understand it fully. We're all characters. You walk down the block, you know, everybody you see is a character. If you grew up here and played ball in the schoolyards like we did and everything else, you know, it becomes part of you. It's very easy to adapt to it. And certainly if you have the talent, I could never be an actor. This is what I do. Anyway, let's talk about COVID Ditty. You know, where did it come from? Why did you decide the whole thing? It's a 5-part series of short clips that capture glimpses of what life is like in our neighborhoods right now. So where'd you get the idea and why'd you?
Well, a lot of artists right now in the city, actors who work in the live theater and television, our industry shut down, during the pandemic. The first to stop was live theater. So I was doing a play my last play I did was Christmas Carol in Harlem at the Classical Theater of Harlem. And you're doing 8 shows a week. And that took me into January of last year, and then February, and then the pandemic hits. And something you've been doing your whole life, you're told you can't do anymore. There were no more auditions. There was no more film and television. It just stopped cold. So your way of making a living stopped, and you were stuck in the lockdown like everyone else. I'm not saying that we had it any worse than most people. We didn't. We were all locked down. And I think for a creative person, it really hit hard. The actor who's used to running around to auditions, and well, there was none of that anymore. So I found myself with a lot of alone time, basically, to shift gears inward, and get a little bit more spiritual, And I think what's come out of that reflection of interior was this sort of writer in me, which I've written before. I had a play last year, go off Broadway, and I've written a couple one-man shows. But this just brought me back to the typewriter. They laugh at me, the younger actors in the show. They say, "You write this on a typewriter."
You wanted to express what was going on here because it's so unique and characterize it for our borough of the Bronx. I mean, that's what I got out of the stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm just giving you before I even hit the streets. I was just like in my house freaking out like everyone. And then once we could leave the house, I did it on a cell phone. I actually took a cell phone and I started taping the juxtapositions that I saw. Like, I couldn't believe the 3 addictions were open. I mean, you could have fast food at McDonald's. You could drink yourself to death at the giant liquor store at 238, which was open. And you could gamble the New York State Lottery. I thought, these things are essential.
Oh, here it is. COVID Ditty. Let's take a look.
Your father tells me you play for the Kingsbridge Little League? Charlie, I love baseball. Me encanta. In my country, we play all year long. We have one season. Hot.
Boy, y'all look freezing. Well, it's a big bear here. Look, do you want a good Irish breakfast without freezing? Head up north on Broadway to the Irish Free State.
The Irish Free State?
Come on, off you go. Get across that border to Yonkers.
Wow. I feel like a kid on a field trip.
We're in another country. Look around. Rats! Come in, come in.
Well, there you go. There's a sampling of it. All this stuff was shot in our neighborhoods, right? I
Yes.
mean, it certainly reflects the borough of the Bronx. And you also brought in like all the people you knew. This was like a bit of a culmination in a way. You kind of re-put together all the things you had developed over the years.
Well, what happened was I, put casting notices out for people. This particular episode is the road trip to find indoor dining. So the waitress there is an excellent actress. She's actually one of our crew members also. But it wasn't that she was just offered the part. She had to audition. And I actually put a casting notice in Yonkers, where the episode goes to, in the Irish community there at the Irish Community Center. And I was inundated with professional actors from Ireland, headshots and resumes. And we found a wonderful actor later in the episode to play a waiter who's from Ireland, is an Irish actor. And it's a very, important episode now because people are really stuck. Where are we going to eat if there's no indoor dining here in the Bronx? But literally, you can go 2 or 3 miles north to Yonkers and find indoor dining. So once again, juxtapositions, strange happenings. It was just natural for me to start writing about it.
And it's what's been going on now. The other segment, we're going to show a real short clip, and I told you before that it really hit me right here, is this idea of me and Mr. Lee was another episode. And a little, I don't even think I want to introduce it. Let's just watch a Bronx boy doing what Bronx kids do. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Me and Mr. Lee. Take a look.
The other day, I was upset that your business was slow. And people were not coming here to eat as much. All my friends come here. Me too. So I wanted to help. I have a gift from you. For all the kids at Kingsbridge. We raise some money by selling lemonade in the park. Hope it helps keep your doors open. We love Panda and want to help.
Well, there you go. And this is who we are. There's the Bronx people working together. I guess that's one of the stories that has to be told here in COVID. And I've seen it in the Bronx. People really, we do this, we band together, don't we?
Yeah, well, what's happening there was the Chinese community has been discriminated against with the constant, White House talking of the China virus and all this. And this particular businessman, the restaurateur in Kingsbridge, saw his sales go down. People stopped coming to his restaurant. And little Charlie overhears this conversation between his dad and Mr. Lee and comes up with the idea that maybe we can help him. We can do a fundraiser for him. So I won't spill the whole beans here, but good old Charlie ends up propping up a lemonade stand in Van Cortlandt Park. And I'll leave it at that.
And there you saw what the clip is. All right, now let's just go through it. People can see the COVID Ditty or Ditties, and they can see it on all the social media and everything else. Why don't you lay that out there for us?
Yeah, they can go to the @sign, so @COVID Ditty, COVIDDITTY, no spaces. It'll come up on YouTube and Facebook. They can also go to my website, stevegreensteinactor.com with no spaces. stevegreensteinactor.com. And then you'll have our mission statement, what we're trying to do. All dollars spent on set go right back to the community. When you make a project like this, we have meals to be served on set. We buy all our meals in the Bronx. We have local actors who are working. We have crew members that are local that are working. And we're also, looking for some funding, quite frankly. So if anyone, feels like they want to donate, we have a wonderful donation page where we'll ship you out a COVID Ditty t-shirt made of the Bronx.
Listen, we got to get going. I feel like I made a Bronx friend, a new Bronx friend today, Steve Greenstein. Congratulations on all the work you've done. And maybe now this will inspire you to a whole other aspect of your career. And I think that'll be just fantastic. COVID Ditty, stevegreensteinactor.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Let's do the right thing. And we'll all be here next time you bring us some new stuff to talk about.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You and your staff have been nothing but wonderful. Thank you.
We'll take a short break. We're going to do another film right after this about the Eagle Academy, one of the most important institutions, educational institutions in the Bronx. Don't go away.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community, and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronx, this is John Campbell.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. This is really a fun show for me because we did one actor and filmmaker before, and now we're doing something that really, really, really is important in the borough of the Bronx. And we're talking about the Eagle Academy, which is one of the most successful educational innovations that you could imagine. It is my pleasure to welcome David Banks, who is the president and CEO of the Eagle Academy Foundation. Nice to have you with us, Mr. Banks.
It's a pleasure to be here and to see you again after so many years, Gary. Thank you.
We were talking before the show that David, if you don't mind, and I we've been talking about these same issues for a long time. And the producer of a new film called The Infamous Future is John Campbell. And John, it must have been a real pleasure to, first of all, welcome to the program. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
And it must have been a real pleasure to videotape and film something that was so successful.
This has been my greatest pleasure, really.
Well, there you go. Let's establish for people who don't know, David Banks, what is the Eagle Academy? And we know it started in the Bronx, and why has it been so successful?
You know, the Eagle Academy is it's a network of all boys schools in New York City, and we actually have one in Newark, New Jersey as well. But it was the brainchild of an organization I've been a part of for many years, 100 Black Men. 100 Black Men is a civic organization of professional men, been around for over 50 years. And we were looking at all the data showing, young men of color, Black boys, Latino boys in particular, and how much they were struggling to graduate from our schools, how many of them were being locked up in the criminal justice system. And we thought that, we should lean in and do more to try and help. And so we helped to get a school started. And it's not a private school. It's not a parochial school. It's not even a charter school. It's a traditional public school. And I was the principal of the school in the Bronx as we got started back in 2004. And since that time, I have moved over to head the Eagle Academy Foundation. And my role there is to support all the other schools that we have created. So we now have created an Eagle Academy in every borough in New York City, one in Newark, 3,000 boys, 2,000 graduates, where we make sure we teach them about leadership and citizenship and being fully engaged and giving them what they need to believe in themselves and to become successful. It has been the work of my life. It really has.
Why is it so successful? Why was the concept successful? And then as it played out, why did it work out so well that the students are graduating, they have careers, they're ultimately getting jobs, they're certainly going to college first and then getting jobs. What makes it work?
It's a culture that we create. It's a culture of expectation. It's a culture of support. It's a place that when you step into the walls of our building, our young men and their parents know that this is a place where we truly believe in these young men. That's not just something to say. That's something that you have to demonstrate that you truly believe in them and you have high expectations for them. We have mentors for these young men. Our teachers get trained in the best practices for how you engage our boys in the classroom. You think about it, Gary. If anybody has a son and a daughter, they know the boys can sometimes bring a different kind of energy, and you've got to know how to manage that energy in the classes. But most teachers have never been trained in how to work with boys in our schools. And so we go in depth around how we do that and how we make sure, what are the things that it takes to engage boys and to get them to actually be working for their own success and not become disruptive in school. There's a brotherhood that they form amongst each other that is really important. We get our parents and the community deeply involved, providing internship opportunities for our kids so that they know what's at the other end of the spectrum. All those things are really important.
John Campbell, what's the challenge to representing this in film? And I saw the film, and why were you so successful at it? What made it sing?
Well, honestly, it was the success of the teachers, the principals, the Eagle Academy Foundation. It was really their success, and really my job was to shine a light and highlight what they are doing. And that inspired me initially. And with that, I decided, because the film was actually a different story at the beginning, but once I was inspired by what was happening with Eagle Academy. I changed the entire production and focused solely on Eagle Academy, and I'm more than thrilled because really the success is already there.
The way that we're about to take a look at the trailer for it, the way that Mr. Banks presented it was, I've got this greatest story that's never been told before. So I guess as a filmmaker, you really, especially if you're a documentarian, you know, you're looking for something that's real and means something. Sounds like even the concept inspired you too.
I can tell you that is a true line that actually happened the first day that I met David. David Banks, I walked into his office and that's what he said to me. And I literally kind of lost my breath for a second. And then he chose to take me around to all of the schools. And I was so impressed. So really, you know, all the tools were there for me to really share this great story.
We have two guests today who said that this is a labor of love. One is the educator, one is the filmmaker. Let's take a look at that love. Now, let's see. It's debuted on HBO Max at the first of the year. You can see it on that stream. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, The Infamous Future.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Eagle. I've got the greatest story that has never been told. When we started the Eagle Academy back in 2004, there was a report that 75% of the inmates from the entire New York State correctional system came from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. And all of those neighborhoods where the concentration of black boys are, some of the lowest performing schools are, those are the spots that we want to try to go into to create the Eagle Academy.
A lot of people believe that you're from the South Bronx. You're not gonna make it, you're not gonna go to college, you're not gonna be what you wanna be.
I'm proud of being able to see him graduate high school because I didn't do it.
Our young men are up against it in every front, and it shouldn't have to be that way. So my organization decided we were gonna do something about that.
People see our young men, and the first thing they do feel is fear.
We get to lean into that discomfort as a school. We're gonna take it on, and we're gonna smile while we do it. We're gonna grow our guys.
You are stepping into a world that doesn't care for you. Black boys who are behind academically, they are the demographic that everybody is trying to avoid. That is the population that we have asked for. That's the reason we were created in the first place, because we see the promise and the potential in each and every one of them.
Education. It is an ocean liner. We have to slowly turn that ocean liner around, and this is a starting point.
You are going to face challenges each and every day. Repeat after me, young men of Eagle Academy. The champ is here. What you say? Who's here?
Well, there you go. The Infamous Future. I'm going to, you know, if we were in a big room, everybody would give it applause. Mr. Banks, let's talk about why, you know, what works about this and why was documenting it so important to you?
You know, the reason that I got into this work in the first place was to try to help to transform the lives of so many young men who have skill, who have promise, who have potential, but who very often were not going into supportive environments to make a difference in their lives. And that's the reason why we do the work. But I think what John Campbell did, which was brilliant, was in his ability to tell the story. And he went, you know, across all of our schools and you know, he only had 40 minutes to tell the story. And he did an amazing job of kind of piecing it all together across schools and varying stories that we're running through. It's an amazing story because it's a story of hope. It's a story that will inspire people that, you know, they too, if they care deeply enough, can make a difference. Not only for young men, but just whoever's under their care as educators. And we all need to be inspired from time to time and to know that that we can make a difference.
It is possible is really what we're talking about here. Like, we can really do this. And you, John Campbell, went into a place where there is often not a lot of hope, and people, even the youngsters themselves, don't see themselves succeeding. John, talk to me about why I mean, you could try and do, a thing about everything, but then you decided to focus on one youngster and one and mom, etc. What captivated you about that situation that made you say this is how we ought to tell the story?
Well, I can tell you the first thing for me is, in terms of looking at the media, in terms of looking at messages, in terms of looking at the stories about young men of color, there's a drought when it comes to positive messages. There's really not much that you hear about, and I feel that it's important to be part of telling the positive images and showing the positive images and telling the positive messages. And so that was what was important for me. And I can tell you everyone at Eagle was on board, and we wanted to focus on Joshua, because let me tell you, there was over 600 hours of film. And you could imagine trying to narrow that down to just 40 minutes. It was very difficult, but there was something just compelling about Joshua Perez and his mother that was very inspiring. And so that was also one of our choices that we had to make. And also to have the Brooklyn Borough President, Eric L. Adams, and some of the other principals from some of the locations. It was just important to tie this message in. And David Banks shared a lot of the truth, but he also shared a lot of the hope. And I think that was what was important.
Does come through. But before we run out of time, David Banks, now that you've got the film, you got about 30 seconds. Tell us about like what's next. More schools, do it better, get more funding. What's on your agenda now that this film on HBO Max, folks? Now that you have it, what's next?
We're not going to open any more Eagle Academies. We've been asked by school districts across the country to do that. But we've decided that a brick and mortar approach won't work. We are now training schools and school districts on the best practices to engage young men for their own success. As I said in the film, we want to teach a man how to fish. That's a huge part of what it will take. One school at a time is nice, but being able to teach people so they have their own capacity to do it is even more important, and that's what we're committed to.
And now you've got the tools to do it. John Campbell made the film, The Infamous Future. The whole world can see it on HBO Max. Congratulations, David Banks, for the many years of being an educator who really cares and really has turned something around for a lot of people. And John Campbell, you were the man in the driver's seat. Congratulations for having the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Folks, that's it. What an enjoyable edition of the Bronx Buzz this week. We'll be back with more next week. And you stay safe, wear your mask. Let's keep everybody safe. And thanks to our great producer, Rebecca. And